Welcome to the TCU Innovates podcast.
For over 150 years, Texas Christian University has been at the forefront of innovation, and we're just getting started.
I'm TCU Chancellor Victor Boschini.
And I'm TCU President Daniel Pullen.
We are your hosts of TCU Innovates.
We highlight the latest stories of innovation and thought leadership across our community.
Dream big, be bold,
and lead on, Horned Frogs.
Hello, everyone, and thank you again for tuning in to these podcasts. This is Victor Boschini, and I'm here today with Kit Tennyson Moncrief, and Mrs. Moncrief is the chair of the Texas Christian University Board of Trustees. Kit, thank you so much for being on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, gosh, it's great to have you. Kit, let's start. Tell us, what was your first involvement with Texas Christian University?
I was really lucky as a child to grow up coming to all the football games. Living in Fort Worth, TCU was the biggest thing in Fort Worth, and it was the highlights to come to the football games and all the games. My family was very sports-oriented, so we were here a lot.
And Kit, wasn't your mom involved with the board before you?
My mother was on the board, then on the executive committee before me, and adored it.
And I think that says a lot, too, because I love that your family has been involved forever. And then you married into a family that was involved, right?
I did, and my husband was on the board before I was on the board. And he was rotating off when I got on the board. So it was just kind of a continuation of my whole life being involved in TCU. And he was a TCU grad.
Yeah, he was always a lot of fun, too. I loved your husband because he would always tell you what he thought, and that's what I liked. You knew where you stood.
Yes, you never had a question on that.
That's right.
And he loved TCU, so everybody knew when he said that was the truth.
Well, Mrs. Moncrief, Kit, she started on the board in 2005, and then 2 years ago now, she became the chair of our board of trustees. The first time we had a woman in 150 years. How did that feel, Kit?
Well, I was very honored, but I wondered why it took TCU so long.
That's good. That's good. Tell our listeners, though, what does the chair of a board of trustees do?
Well, it's a very learning experience, but it's working with the president and the chancellor to help and support them and help raise money, help encourage our brand and in the community and everywhere. And it's also to work with the board, that the whole board can be involved and support the school in any way we can.
I think one of the biggest things, and I always say this to her, is that when you're not the chair of the board, you don't realize that the biggest job of the board chair involves involvement. You're at so many things, and you're asked to be the speaker, kiss the baby, be the person to, pass the gavel. And unless you're doing that job, people forget how much is involved.
You really don't know until you're chair that it's really a city, and there's so many complex parts of it, and very interesting, and so many interesting people. And TCU does so much in so many different ways and helps so many people and guides people. I mean, it's so important to their whole lives. And I think you learn that and learn every decision that we make as a board influences that. And so it's really a wonderful experience. I'm really blessed to be able to be involved.
In case our listeners don't know, there are 50 seats on our board of trustees, and right now they're all full. And so I guess my question to you, Kit, is how do you get to know 50 people? Because in order to lead them, you've got to know them.
Well, we're really lucky because all 50 of them are great. We have retreats. One starts tomorrow where all of us get together, and then there is time for everybody to discuss, and everybody is free to say exactly what they want, whether they disagree or agree with you. And it makes it wonderful because nobody gets mad at each other. They listen to each other. We're having a really good board that is very understanding of each other's opinion, and it really makes it better. And so I think just getting to be around the board, because a lot of our boards are from different parts of the country. Mm-hmm. A lot of our board members are. So I think having these retreats gives us 2 or 3 days to get to know each other.
I always think that one of the best qualities of any leader is being a good listener, and you're really good at that. And I think that helps a ton.
Well, I think it's because I don't know a lot of it, so I have to listen to learn it.
Oh, you're modest. I think you know more than you think. Kit, tell me this. Have you had any surprises? Now, once you're the chair, you really see how the sausage is made kind of thing. You know the background details. Has anything surprised you about that?
I think what surprised me and interests me is how complicated it is. If you do one thing, it affects something else. And how also I think a nice surprise is everybody working here loves TCU and they love their department and they think their department's the most important. And that's good because they work that much harder. But I think the surprise it is such a big organization and 13,000 students are here. I mean, it's a city.
And I think I totally agree with you on that. People don't realize that it's very complex. Everything touches everything else and nothing is discrete. And so I think that is a very important thing. We are embarking on a new master plan that the board's about to review and hopefully vote on this week in that retreat. And the 4 pillars of that master plan are growth, athletics, research, and community engagement. And we could talk about each of them for hours, but I just want to talk about one, especially with you, about the community engagement, because I want to know, Kit, do you think it's important for TCU to be a part of Fort Worth and vice versa for Fort Worth to be a part of TCU?
100%. And I think we have been. I mean, TCU has made Fort Worth turn purple many times, and Fort Worth is hand in hand with TCU on everything. And I think between all the governing bodies of Fort Worth and all the support of the people of Fort Worth, whether they went to TCU or not, I mean, they love it and they're very proud of TCU.
Agreed. And I think people forget a little history lesson here that the people of Fort Worth, the city government of Fort Worth, brought TCU to Fort Worth. And they brought them in 1910 downtown, and they started building the campus we're on here. And in 1911, they moved in this campus. But I think that set the tone for TCU being a part of Fort Worth and Fort Worth being a part of TCU. I think people also forget that we're one of the biggest employers, that we also generate a lot of income for Fort Worth with kids buying Cokes and parents buying hotel rooms and things like that. I just think that it goes a long way.
Yeah, the economic impact for Fort Worth is really wonderful. And also, I think TCU is such a beautiful campus. It's a big campus and it's pretty. And I think people love just to come over here and see the campus, whether they're going to school here or not. But I think it's one thing that Fort Worth's very proud of.
Oh, thanks. I agree. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this, Kit. Another huge part of TCU are the sports, the athletic teams, the camaraderie it brings, the sense of community it brings. What is your opinion about, are sports as important as I'm saying, or do you think that they're not?
No, I think the sports part of it is very important, and I think it is another way of the student body communicating with each other and being a part of the school, because they're the support part of when they're at the football game. They're there for their basketball game. They're a part of it. But also, the sports is so great for our alumni, and it's great for Fort Worth. It's just great, and our facilities are fabulous and are getting more fabulous. And I just think it's a wonderful part of TCU and very important.
Well, I personally, as a person who works for you, I love that you love TCU. But I also know you, and I think I know the answer to this, but I want you to tell this to the audience. You have other loves too. Of course, your family's first, but outside of TCU, what are some of your loves in the city of Fort Worth? I think I know what you're going to say is your number one.
The zoo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the zoo and been involved in the zoo, the National Cowgirl Museum and Hall of Fame. Our other museums are wonderful. I think everything in Fort Worth is wonderful, and I think that's something that's so special about Fort Worth. We want everything to be great. People in Fort Worth don't pick a project. They want TCU, arts, zoo, everything to be wonderful, because it's a great experience and a great place to live.
And would you agree with this, just like how we were saying TCU is complex and interconnected? I think Fort Worth is too, because all those things you just mentioned, we have the same people, a lot of the same people on all those different committees.
That's true. We have a great group of people. That's sort of how we are considered a town in a lot of senses, because we have a group of people that work for everything to make everything well, and we're getting younger people involved. And I think we're very, very lucky compared to other cities that we have what we have. We have the best museums, the best zoo, the best university. So I think we're the best north side. I mean, I think many cities are very jealous of us.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay, Kit, a big part of TCU is it costs a lot of money to run a university, and you're a big donor to TCU. But if I was a person looking to donate money to TCU, what area would you tell me were the ones that were most important? What do you think?
Well, I think athletics is great if that's your interest. I think scholarships is so important because we want everybody that's qualified to come to TCU to be able to come here. And we do not want the cost of it to prohibit anybody from coming here. So I think that's really important. We're always building buildings, so we love people to contribute to that because we're a growing campus. We have 13,000 students, and each year we're growing. But really, if we could have everybody come with a scholarship that needs it, that would be the best.
Agreed. And the neat thing about scholarship gifts is they last in perpetuity. Mm-hmm. TCU's been here 150 years, and we have some scholarships that are already over 100 years old. And so when you give for a scholarship, you can be assured that it'll be here forever. Kit, tell me this. What if people say, what's your legacy? What would you want your legacy to be as chair of the Board of Trustees? You only get to do it for 4 years. That's part of the bylaws. So at the end of those 4 years, what would you want your legacy to be?
Well, that I was there to help, that I was hopefully making a difference, but there for working with the board well and supporting you and the president well. I want to do all I could do to help.
Well, then I don't think you have to worry because I think you already cemented your legacy because you're definitely doing that and much, much more. Tell me one more thing, Kit, before we go. When you were a kid, did you ever think like someday I'm going to be the chairman of the board of a university?
No, when I was little, I thought, God, this is so cool. I'll never get in. So.
I love it. And your mom was also on the executive committee, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so what were her passions at TCU?
Well, she had been a teacher during World War II at the University of Texas because all of the men went off to war. So education, anything with the education, but she loves sports. So I think that's how we grew up. And my father played football and baseball at Baylor. So it was big rivalries. It made it really fun. But Southwest Conference was fun.
But basically, you have ties to lots of Texas schools then.
Yes.
And all of our rivals, basically, which I think is so neat.
As long as they're all in Texas, it's okay.
That's right. Okay, Kit, before we go, one last thing. If you had to say to you have grandchildren, and I think that's really neat, and I know you love them, what would you tell one of your grandkids if they were considering going to TCU, which I hope they will?
I do too. Study hard. But it's going to be the greatest experience of your life if you can go to TCU.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was Kit Tennyson Moncrief, Chair of the Board of Trustees at TCU. Aside from, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her before we end here. She currently also serves as president of the National Cowgirl Museum Hall of Fame, and she's on the boards of the Zoo and also the TSCRA Foundation. Additionally, she's on the board of a foundation called the Brown-Lupton Foundation. And in case you don't know that, that's the University Union at TCU, that's the Health Center at TCU, and that's been many things at TCU over the years. So, Kit, I just want to thank you very much for the time you dedicate to TCU and also the talent. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very, very lucky to be here.
The TCU Innovates podcast is recorded at the KTCU studio in the Bob Schieffer College of Communication at Texas Christian University. Special thanks to our student producer, Jackson James, and the entire TCU team for supporting our show. Go Frogs!